Yeah.
There's so much you just said that I want to kind of pull on the threads, but I think this piece right here, and I think that's also our relationship with you, where it felt like you found the right balance between the professional and the personal. And I want to kind of pull it back to something that you had said earlier on, which is the idea of pushing and pulling, but then also understanding the context of your space. One of the things that I often see with business development people who are either not as far in their career or really haven't figured out a good thread on that is the gathering information, right? I think the other side of that is you talk about, like the push side is maybe more on the sales side, that early conversation. But I also feel as like you guys are the first people in the market gathering information to bring back. Right? When you have these conversations with people, you can't go back to your solutions team and be like, this is what they want. And then if your solutions team asks questions, you'd be like, well, I don't know. You figure that out, right?
Right.
You actually have to be able to not only quote unquote sell what your company is offering, but you have to sell the client back to the company, which is, I think this is a good client because this is what they need. This is where the synergy is. This is how we bring value to them. And so the first place that I kind of want to dive into is when you're having these conversations, and whether you're in business building mode or relationship building mode, how are you thinking about like data gathering? How are you thinking about sort of downloading what someone is in someone's head and then bringing that back to the company and then kind of doing that dance? You're really that conduit of information.
That's a really good question. And to be honest, yeah, that's a really good point about us being the first line, right? The first group of people that gather the information. I think, yeah, so the way I do discovery, right? I think that's kind of the way we call it internally, right? Discovery, the first call when we connect with a client, where we're trying to learn as much as possible, is a framework that I find very helpful that I use now kind of on a pretty much every single time I talk to a client is current state, future state, and what do we need to do to get there, right? What's missing? What is the gap, right? So the reason why I find it very helpful is first, let me understand where things are at right now, right? How big is your team? What kind of, what things are you doing for this company, right? What kind of problems are you guys solving for this business? Basically asking them, hey, why does your job exist, right? What do you do at your company? So I think that's the first layer. So I understand, okay, this person, for example, is building a data platform. So he's not actually doing, this is just a very high level example, right? So he's doing A thing instead of B thing. So at least I have the understanding. So I know later on, all the conversation we'll be having is geared towards this direction, because this is the field that is relevant to him. And then I ask him, so what is the future state, right? What are you working towards, right? What is your short and long-term goals that you're trying to achieve? So the reason why I ask that is also related to the way my company offers solutions, right? So they're short-term solutions, they're long-term solutions. So it's important for me to try to figure out, hey, what are some of the things that you guys are trying to figure out right now, right? Like, and that means that there's an urgency to it. But then what are some of the things you guys are targeting 3, 4, 5 years down the line? Like the ideal state, right? If it's up to you, where would you like to bring this thing to? Right. So then it helps me plan for the next 5, 10, 15 conversations with this person. Because in the back of my head, I always remember that, hey, it's your, I guess, in a way, dream, but it's the ideal state you would like to get into. That's the thing. That's the big thing.
It's like their big vision as opposed to like, tell me what your goal is for like this month or this quarter. Then you're going to have kind of a short-sighted thought on what they want to do. But if you have a larger perspective of like what they're achieving, what their measure of success over the next 5 years is, you can build that path. Yeah.
Right. And it's almost like you're not only doing a BD, you're actually having a partner mindset, right? You're partnering up with them and helping them to achieve their goal.
100%. I would say, like I mentioned earlier, right? Like, especially in the US, like these people are very smart and they probably have 100 companies reaching out to them on a weekly basis trying to sell them something. So for them, if you don't understand my problem first, how can you then help me solve it, right? I think that's the way I think about it. If I don't understand you, I'm pushing all these, even if I have this great tool, I don't know that you need it. I might be selling you another tool that you don't need. Mm-hmm. So, I guess in New York, you can't afford to waste people's time. You do it once, that's your only opportunity. You lose it, right? This person would likely not engage with you again. So I think for me, I would rather slow down and understand what you want. And like you said, sure, be a partner to you, right? If there truly is nothing I can do for you at this moment, it's okay. I would like to be a partner to you long term, right? So somewhere down the line, we can talk about how I can potentially help you get to that place, right? But first thing first, I got to understand you. It's like getting to know people as friends, right? I like to know you first. I like to know what you like, what you want to do. So then in the future, I can be a good friend, a good partner too.
Yeah. I mean, how do you have sort of an SOP or a process for how you approach that in terms of when you're making that calculation of, all right, I'm going to push business with this person based on ABC factor, or, you know what, I think down the line, there's going to be some value to our relationship, whether it's on a business or a personal value or a networking referral value. Are there certain signals that you're looking for, or do you have a certain process you go through to be like, okay, this is going to be like a friendly conversation versus this is going to be a business conversation? And let's say it's like the first or second time you've met somebody.
That's a really good question. So I would say if it's the first time, I always start, because typically my meetings are about 30 to 45 minutes long, right? Unless it's over lunch, then I have a bit more time. But I would say if it's a first call and I'm meeting somebody virtually, I always start friendly. Because if it's the first time I'm meeting you, most likely, you're a very busy person and you're taking the time out of your day to come speak with me. But then you also don't know who I am, right? So for all you know, this is like a crazy roller coaster ride. So I think I always like to start super friendly to like ease them down a little bit, like to make them feel more at ease and to kind of set the tone that, hey, no matter what, this is going to be a friendly conversation, right? Because earlier in my career, I try to go straight to business because I'm like, oh my God, these guys are so busy. You know, I can't waste their time. I got to be a machine. And then somebody gave me a really good advice, actually. He said, hey, just remember, these people also put on their pants one leg at a time in the morning, just as you do. They're just another human being. They got the same problems that you have, most likely. They just do a different job. So that really stuck with me. Then I realized, okay, I'm actually talking to a human. And if I can't get them to relax and want to talk to me on a human level, no matter how much we talk shop, there's no connection, right? So I think I always start super friendly, right? The first 5 or even sometimes 10 minutes, if this person is in a particularly chatty mood or we happen to talk about something they're very interested in, I'll let them talk. You know, we can always schedule a follow-up call. I can bring coffee to your office and we talk more about business. But first, let me get to know, right? It's the relationship piece, right? So after that, then I think the simple framework I follow, right, when we start talking business is the understanding, discovery of your business, right? So short and long-term goals, current state, future state, that probably takes, ideally, I like to have it controlled within 10 to 15 minutes. But of course, if they're super chatty about it, we can extend the call a little bit. But understanding what they want to do. And then this comes with experience. You have to know your business. So while they're talking, in your head, you're already looking at it like, okay, I'm getting information, I'm taking notes. And something I love doing is confirming what I heard, right? So A, I'm showing you, A, I'm listening to you. B, I'm also making sure I'm getting the right information. So then when I say something to you about what we do, I can be super, super relevant to you, right? So when I'm listening to what this person's telling me, in my mind, I'm already thinking about, hey, my company offers A, B, C, D, E different things. Which one of these can bring the most value to you, right? So after they tell me that, I ask them, hey, you know, so that's actually interesting. You mentioned this, and that issue. My company actually does this, and that, right? That I think could be a very good fit. And maybe sometimes give them an example, right? And this is a little trick I like to use, which also comes from knowing your industry. If you can give them an example of what their competitor is doing, who you know they're following very closely. You spike their interest like that because they're watching each other very closely, right? So an example I always like to use is Lululemon's always watching Nike. Nike's always watching Lululemon. So like they're always watching each other. But it's just two companies that we found that are very interested in each other's strategy. But so I would say that is typically how I bring out the information. And while I'm listening, those are the cues I'm looking for, right? Like, hey, this is the problem I'm solving. So if they tell you a problem, that's massive, right? Bottlenecks, problems, gaps, or things that keep me up at night. Like these are all things, keywords you should be listening to, because then it gives you a foundation where you can jump in to offer value. And then you hit them with the, hey, I think this can help.
I mean, you're almost operating as like a strategy to consultant to some degree, which is like, I can see some of the gaps in what you're doing or that you're looking for a way to fill. And then I can jump in and offer something for you to, fill that gap. And then it's more, it's solution providing as opposed to sales, like straight sales.
I would like to believe that's what I'm doing. Because because I think it also has something to do with the nature of the business I'm in. I'm not selling a product, right? If my company does a straightforward product, then this becomes a much more streamlined process. I just need to know, do you need A, B, C, D? This is what we do. A, B, C, D. Here you go. But my company does, my apologies. My company does solutions, which is highly tailored and customizable. So if I don't fully understand, I cannot give you a good solution. I'll give you like a solution that doesn't hit what you're trying to solve completely.
Right.
I mean, sort of taking this further down the road, because a lot of what you have described is around when you've gotten that meeting of let's sit down and have coffee. But then, like in you and I's case, we actually met at a networking event. And so I'm curious at your mindset approaching where it's all unknown, right? Like if I'm doing outreach or I'm getting referrals, I'm targeting and I at least have a basis or a box to approach the conversation from. But, the first time we met, having that conversation with you, you don't know who I am. I don't know who you are. Yeah, Jayesh, our mutual friend, sort of made that intro. But you're literally staying in an event where it's just like anyone could be a really good conversation. Anyone could be a really bad conversation. What's your mindset or thought process walking into this type of scenario?
That is a very interesting question. And I have to say, as a Taiwanese person, like culturally, that's something I had to spend some time to overcome because Taiwan人很怕尴尬. So like sometimes we feel like I'm just going to walk up to somebody and say hi. It's a little awkward. I think, but I think in Western world, this is a very important networking events, right? Any sort of events where they're a big group of people and it's up to you. You can stay there all night without talking to anybody, or you can try to strike conversations, right? So I think in those situations, right, Nick, you and I, we were lucky we had Jayesh to introduce us, but that was a very high level because he was so busy. That night, right? But I'm not sure.
This is what they do. This is what they do. Go talk.
Yeah, because he was literally running the whole event that night. Everybody was like counting on him. So yeah, he was so busy. But so what I do, I'm not sure if you noticed, it's almost like what you would do on a first date, right? So personally, this is I guess a technique I use whenever I meet new people at whatever event, right? It could be a friend of a friend. It could be somebody you're just meeting. You don't know what this person could mean to you. It could be a personal relationship. But something I do is I throw out a bunch of filler things. Not filler things, but like different topics, but very easy conversations. So for example, in the back of my mind, I always have the weather to talk about. People think it's a cliche. But weather actually gives you like a good 5-minute conversation with somebody. Within the 5 minutes, then you can use the material to expand. But these high-level topic that most people would have in common with you, right? So not sure if you remember, Nick, but the first few questions I asked you was all about how often are you in New York? Where are you staying in New York? Right?
Yeah.
What are you doing in New York? So like these are all things about New York, which is a location we're both currently in. So based on your response, I have a lot of different things I can pull. Oh, you were staying, I think at that time you were staying across the bridge in New Jersey somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
the very first time we met, yeah.
Yeah. And that says something about the path and how you get in. That's a way to like kind of extend. So you're throwing out a lot of high level things that most people have in common. Because if I come at you right away and be like, hey man, do you like are you into like gaming computers or like something very specific, there's a high chance I'm gonna miss. But if I ask you what you had for dinner or what do you think about New York, like pretty much 10 out of 10 times you have something to say. So it's really more about not about what I say, it's about what you say. So I'm saying things, asking you questions that is open-ended and you can answer very easily. Because if it's a question you have to think very hard, you might get bored by this conversation very quickly. You're like, why do I need to talk to this person and answer all these questions I got to think 10 minutes, 15 minutes on? Right? So
like I'm being interrogated.
Exactly.
I love it. I mean, going along with the first date analogy, if JS hadn't introduced you guys, how would you pick up each other? I'm sorry.
That's a good one.
Like, how would you actually approach someone if you don't have that connection or someone introducing you?
So, at a business event, the good thing is I know who I know at this company. So worst case scenario, what I would do is I walk up to, so here's what I would do. If, there's always groups of people talking, right? I get a drink in my hand, start walking around, and then like just kind of listen to people's conversation, eavesdrop a little bit. But the thing is, if I see somebody standing there alone by themselves, I walk up to that person first. Because I know that person's begging for somebody to talk to them. Because if you're at an event, you're alone, we're on the same boat, buddy. Like, I know you need this too. So I wouldn't walk up to them right away. But if, let's say, Nick that night was already engaged in some other conversations, what I would do is, okay, this seems like an interesting group of people. Let me eavesdrop a little bit. I'm like trying to sneak in and trying to listen. And then at one point, maybe like offer one or two sentences, right? Maybe agreeing with somebody or slightly disagreeing with somebody, and then try to blend in that way. So I think it all starts with, if we never been introduced, I think a big important thing for me to do as someone that's looking to build relationship or to introduce myself to other people, it's very important for me to first listen to other people, right? Because if you guys are having a great conversation, I walk in, hey, I'm Michael, nice to meet you, I work for tech systems, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. You guys are going to be like, who are you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Right?
Why are you in my conversation?
Yeah. So it's always better to listen first, so you know what you're saying is relevant to these people. It's all about relevance, right? So, I guess.
And then you mentioned that, I think this is very true, and I think for the listeners, it's really important. 台湾人很怕尴尬. We yeah, right, 面子, right? That's the thing. How did you overcome that? What is the mindset that you actually had to grasp? Because
is that just you?
Yeah.
Or was that like something that through moving around a lot or whatever, you were like, all right, let's do this. I'm going to be the friendliest person alive.
Well, I first of all, I'm not sure if I deserve that title, but I try to be friendly as much as I can. But living in New York, you know how it is. I feel like New York's turning me into a slightly more grumpy person. But that's a very good question. I think it's a mixture of a lot of different things. I think personality-wise, I've always been, since I was growing up, I've always been like 调皮捣蛋. I've always been, as a younger kid, I've always been the person that, kind of like a class clown, like what you guys would say in America, right? Class clown. I always like talking to people. I like expressing my opinions. Right? I think I'm a very talkative person by nature. But then I think I also had a lot of training. Very luckily that my parents have always been very supportive in me joining different events or even paying for me to go abroad to go on debate competitions or model United Nations, where I had a lot of opportunities to communicate with people, but not just, talking on a personal level, but actually engaged in something extensively, which helped improve my English skills a lot, but also understanding how to communicate, right, in different cultures. So I think at one point, I just made a decision to myself that, hey, you know what? If I don't talk about myself as a person, so when I moved to Hong Kong when I was 18, didn't know a soul, knew nobody in Hong Kong. I went there for college, one luggage, one backpack. My parents didn't come with me. Just 18 years old, landed in Hong Kong. Everybody's scary. Everybody's yelling at me. Everybody's scamming me. So my first year or so, I met people at school, but I was relatively kind of unknown. People didn't know who I was, and I didn't know. Like, I was kind of in my bubble. But I think one day I decided, like, hey, listen, if I don't go out and make friends, like, why would people want to come meet me? I'm not a particularly good-looking guy, right? I don't have any sort of talents, right? I don't play sports particularly well. So I need to advocate for myself, right? So I think that's one thing I learned that I think is more lacking in our Taiwanese culture, but it's a very important thing in Western cultures, even for places like Hong Kong that is highly westernized. Is if you don't talk about yourself and you're in a very big market with a lot of people, you're going to be forgotten very quick. You can do the same amount of work, but nobody knows what you do. So who do you want to be? I think that's the question I ask myself, right? Who do I want to be? I want to be a person that I work super hard, but nobody sees what I'm doing. Or let me be the person that always reach my hand out first, right? I think that's my philosophy. I always give everybody I meet the benefit of the doubt and the first opportunity. I will always be nice to you until you're not nice to me, but I'm willing to be the person that takes a risk. Because I think Taiwanese people, a lot of times, we overthink it. We're like, 哎呦，不要啦，这样好尴尬。如果他等一下, like, what if this person doesn't want to talk to me? What if they snob me? Right? Yeah. So I think to a degree, I convinced myself, hey, if this person snobbed me just because I said hi to them, it's not my problem. It's their problem. Right. They weren't raised correctly or whatever reason, like, they're not a nice person. Yeah.
I mean, I think that word advocate is so powerful because it's selling to yourself to a degree, but again, in not an aggressive way. Be like, I'm going to show you how good I am, and I'm going to talk about it. It's not going to be narcissistic, but if I bring value, I'm going to prove I bring value. And I think that advocating for yourself or even advocating as a company, after being in Taiwan for so long, everyone's like, my quality is the best, my technology is the best, my service is the best, and if the customer works with me, they will know it. But that's, again, a very passive way of, like, I'm assuming that anyone who touches what I do is just going to automatically, intuitively understand that I'm awesome. But when there's thousands of options or there's dozens of people they can talk to, if you don't advocate for yourself, then why is anyone going to give you more than 30 seconds of the day? They don't need to. They have other options.
Right.
So I think that that's a really interesting word. I mean, it's the right thought process. It's like, how do you advocate yourself? How do you advocate your business?
And actually, funnily enough, thinking about it, I don't think there's a very accurate translation for advocating or advocate in Chinese.
Yeah.
I think like because then whatever way we interpret it, it also almost become like talking about yourself. But advocate is really more like, hey, I think, Nick, what you mentioned earlier, that you're advocating yourself, but you're not narcissistic, you're not trying to be slimy. The big difference is how truthful and authentic you are being. I think advocating for yourself is you're only talking about things that are truthful. You're not trying to scam people into or say something that is not true to try to mislead people into something, right? But no, you're just talking about how much you've done and how much you believe in, like you said, right? Taiwanese people believe in quality, and we actually do the work. We're super hardworking people.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like growing up, I tell some of my like non-Asian friends about the environment that we grew up in, like the rigorous testing and education system our Taiwanese, fellow Taiwanese students go through. They couldn't believe it. They're like, "What? You guys go to cram school after regular school, and you go to school at 7 a.m. You clean the school?" Like, I think for a lot of Westerners, unimaginable. But this goes to you're like, "You guys clean the school?" I was like, "Yeah," and and then afterwards you clean it too. After school, you stay and clean it for another 20 minutes. But I think we work really hard. We're one of the hardest working people. We care about quality a lot. But the biggest problem, like you said, Nick, is I can have the best product in the world, but my company might die before you have the chance to try it. Right? I could have this greatest thing in the world, but I spent all my resources building it. And I'm waiting for somebody to try it. Before somebody tried it, I might starve to death already. Right? So I think that's why advocating is I think, a good lesson for us to learn. I mean, I cannot speak for all Taiwanese people. Some people might be like, "I already do that. What are you talking about?" I'm just saying from my experience, the other Taiwanese expats or students I met.
Absolutely.
But I think this also ties to another theme that you keep talking about, which is in terms of advocating only matters when you're doing active listening, right? I'm not trying to push myself into conversations. I'm listening for where I can bring value. But if I hear where I can bring value, I'm not going to just let it lie there. I'm not going to have people look around in the room and be like, "Oh, who can do this?" And be like, "No, that's what I do. Like, I'm here for you." But it took both. It took the willingness to listen and really understand what someone is saying or what someone is thinking, and then finding the opportunity to interject, to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
100%.
And I really like how you mentioned, I think it's the inner intention, right? When you're advocating for yourself, you are telling the truth, and you are, you do have run into the risk they may reject you, they may not want to talk to you, and that's okay. And I think that's something that I think we as Taiwanese or as Asian, I think from Asian culture, that we can start to think about, because again, like, it's not like we're trying to push, right? We're actually just here like, "Hey, just get to know me. I wanted to get to know you." And that's that. It's really friendly. And just to have a chance to really show who I am to this world.
Yeah. Apologies for that. So, I think that's a very good point, right? It's, at the end of the day, if we're really, we spend so much time doing all the hard work, right? We spend so much time studying, learning, listening, trying to be better people. I feel like East Asian people like us, me and Sherry, and Nick, you've been living in Thailand for a long time, so you can attest to this, is we think about improving ourselves a lot, like on a constant basis, like how, because we're big critics of ourselves, right? Which lead us to become a lot better. But in the meantime, sometimes I think it's a shame. Like, we try so hard to become better people. Why not let other people know, right? Why not let other people know, "Hey, I can actually do this," right? Or, "Hey, I'm actually very equipped, right, to do A, B, and C, right? I can help you do this, both on a personal level and professional level."